I'ma just save you a full minute of him yapping about how he wants more money.
I at no point said that I am spreading misinformation for clicks and views.
I mean, it's not like you're gonna admit that you did. You're also not gonna admit that your content is misinformation anyway, so I'm just gonna let you go.
You officially get paid by TikTok to make content. Just because you're too slow and ignorant to figure out how to withdraw your balance does not mean you are not getting paid by this app.
Brother, if I can't use the money, then it logically follows that I'm not posting for the money. I'm just posting for the love of the game. What was so difficult there to track? And also, don't you have to be at like 10,000 followers to get paid by TikTok? That money there was gotten from when I went live like a couple of years ago. That was like the first time I went live on TikTok and people were gifting me. That shit has been at $11 since like 2023. And even if TikTok was paying me, I still wouldn't be able to withdraw the money. Why? Because the payment option for Nigeria is PayPal. Guess what? PayPal doesn't work here. The other Nigerian content creators who do get paid either created foreign accounts or live abroad or somehow got their hands on like a PayPal account in a legal way. I don't know, but I'm not putting myself through all that stress for $11. So no, I didn't play myself. You just don't know the full story and you're making assumptions.
Since I've debunked a couple of your videos that you've tried to make on me, you definitely spread lies and misinformation.
No, the only thing you've ever corrected me on that I admit to being wrong about was you being like half Nigerian, half Italian or some shit. Yeah, so just like you assumed that I was getting paid by TikTok to make videos and I'm in some sort of TikTok payment program because you saw $11, right? Just like you assumed that because you didn't have the full story, I also assumed that you were not black or you were not African because you don't look like a typical African man or a black man based on what I see. But I was wrong about that, and so were you. Apart from that, there's nothing you've ever debunked me on that I didn't completely shatter and refute your point in my response video.
Yeah, no, that's not how Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Super works anymore. Because as of the Dragon Ball Super Superheroes movie, the manga and anime are now one and the same. Now, to be fair, there are some minor details that do end up getting skipped in the movie versus the manga adaptation of the movie, but
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, this shit made me laugh so hard. You claim that they're the same, but then you admit that they have differences. Like, what? You're contradicting yourself. And also, just because they happen to be the same or similar in one arc doesn't now erase all the differences that they had in the past. It's a timeline. It's a timeline, bro. I'm not gonna lie, bro. I was expecting you to cook on this point. Nah, I'm just joking. I was not expecting you to cook. I was expecting you to spill utter garbage like you always do.
it was early on this episode too, we've got Vegeta recognizing Cooler in the series. Considering Vegeta never met Cooler until the Cooler's Revenge movie, that means that this is officially a separate alternate timeline from the main canon storyline.
But why does it necessarily have to be Cooler from the movies? Are you implying that Cooler can't exist in the main timeline? You could just simply make the argument that Vegeta recognizes him off of a reputation as Frieza's brother, since according to the lore of Dragon Ball, Frieza does have a brother.
However, if we're being fair here, you could make a case that Vegeta met Cooler before he ever ran into Goku and Team on Earth.
Yes, thank you. You're finally making sense. Just because we see a character that appeared in a movie doesn't necessarily mean that that character's existence is tied to that movie. There could simply be a different timeline version of that character in the main continuity. It doesn't necessarily have to be that exact character from the movie.
But that defense goes right out the window when it comes to episode 17 and episode 19, where we see Vegeta and Goku doing a fusion dance, and Jiren mentions the fact that they could have used that during the Tournament of Power. Because as you can see, Dragon Ball Heroes ran from July 2018 to August 2024. And the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie came out in December of 2018 and was released in North America in January of 2019.
I get what you're trying to do here. You're trying to say that since Dragon Ball Super Broly was the first canon introduction of Gogeta, and Dragon Ball Heroes came out before Dragon Ball Super Broly and has Gogeta in it, then that would necessarily follow that Dragon Ball Heroes is non-canon. But as you showed, Dragon Ball Super Broly first released in Japan on December the 14th, 2018, and it released globally on January the 16th, 2019. But Gogeta only shows up in Dragon Ball Heroes on December the 21st, 2019. Almost a whole year after the Broly movie officially existed. So where's the contradiction? Also, the Broly movie is referenced in Dragon Ball Heroes, which is canon to the Dragon Ball Super anime, which makes sense because the Broly movie is also canon to the Dragon Ball Super anime. But actually, let's see what he says next, because I'm kind of interested.
Considering CC Vegito didn't recognize Broly's ki in episode 31, and it was actually Xenogoku who recognized his ki and who he was.
Oh my god, please tell me you didn't watch Dragon Ball without telling me you didn't watch Dragon Ball. Of course CC Vegito didn't recognize him because that's not the Broly from the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. That's Z Broly, a variation of Z Broly from Xeno Goku's timeline. He literally goes Limit Breaker Super Saiyan 4. He's not from the main timeline. This is what the main anime timeline Broly looks like in Dragon Ball Heroes. They literally show you this, but obviously Dre did not watch it. He did not do any form of research whatsoever. You know, the irony is kind of crazy that Dre always says that I don't do any research and I'm the one spreading misinformation. But he doesn't even know the difference between a Z Broly and a Super Broly. Like, don't y'all actually find that crazy? Like, if you're a fan of Midnight Dre, do you not find that crazy? He claims he debunked me and he's a better creator and I don't do any research, but he never bothered to even do any research whatsoever on whether or not Dragon Ball Heroes acknowledges the existence of the Super Broly movie, which is why he didn't even know the difference between a Z Broly from Xenogoku's timeline and a Super Broly. This is pure hypocrisy. Stop listening to this man. He watches Dragon Ball on YouTube Shorts.
That means that none of the events of Dragon Ball Super Broly have occurred in the timeline of Dragon Ball Heroes because Vegeta never learned to do the fusion dance until this movie and its continuity came out.
I am so sorry. I just had to play that so you could see how embarrassing it is for you to be talking about things you know nothing about and do zero research about.
Also got episode 23 where Fu confirms that he took the warriors that Goku and Vegeta proceed to fight out of their shared history.
No, it's not a shared history. This is just a dub mistranslation error where the people who are translating it forgot to pluralize the word history to mean histories. I mean, it literally says, I intervened in the history and save you. Obviously, since Fu is talking in a past tense, it should say, I intervened in the history and saved you with a D, right? Now, if you pay close attention, there's a dude in a white jacket. That's actually Dr. Wheelo. And what he does is he goes after Xenogoku and Vegeta. If you watch Dragon Ball Heroes, you would realize that what Fu is doing is that he's bringing people who lost to Goku and Vegeta in different timelines, right? And obviously those people are gonna want revenge against Goku and Vegeta, so they're obviously gonna help Fu to beat any version of Goku and Vegeta they can find, which is why Dr. Wheelo hates on Xenogoku and Vegeta for no reason. He just calls them monkeys and stuff. Like, literally, Xenogoku and Vegeta don't even know who he is, bruh. These guys just have beef with Goku and Vegeta and will fight any version of them from any timeline to get revenge, which is why Fu summoned them, because he's taking advantage of them, taking advantage of the fact that they want revenge and using them to achieve his own goals.
Goku recognizes Turles and Vegeta recognizes Bojack. It establishes that they both have attacked Earth in his and CC Goku's past. That also means that the Bojack Unbound and Tree of Might movies are also canon to the timeline of CC Goku and Vegeta in the entirety of Dragon Ball Heroes.
Now, this guy, Hirano, is actually the head of every Dragon Ball game that exists. He manages all Dragon Ball game projects and is the head of everything. He's in charge of it. And he states that Xenoverse and Heroes are in the exact same timeline. There's also a bunch of other crazy stuff I can show you guys, but the main point right now is that Xenoverse Goku is CC Goku. Now, in Xenoverse, Toa and Mira are literally messing with history, right? So time rifts are appearing all over the multiverse, and Lord Slug and Turles go from their timeline through the time rift into CC Goku's timeline. Now, Lord Slug and Turles are basically working for Toa and Mira in order to corrupt history, right? And disrupt history, the flow of history, right? So then Turles is sent into the Saiyan saga of the main timeline, which is CC Goku's timeline, in order to stop Goku. So before Goku can reach Vegeta and Nappa, he's stopped by Turles on the way, who introduces himself to Goku and your avatar as Turles. This is yet another valid example of a character that appeared in a movie showing up in the main continuity, not necessarily meaning that that movie took place within the main continuity. Now, in case you didn't track that, the reason why Goku recognizes Turles in Dragon Ball Heroes is because he met Turles in the Saiyan saga before he met Vegeta and Nappa. So your character's job is to stop Turles from interrupting Goku and ruining the Saiyan saga, stopping Goku from ever meeting Nappa and Vegeta. Because the point of Dragon Ball Xenoverse is for your avatar, your custom character, to fix history and return it to its original flow. Now, Toriyama says that he takes the movies as occurring in a different dimension. But here's the thing, the movies were not intended to be different dimensions. They were were intended to be canon to the anime timeline. But the thing is, the movies were being made while the anime was still airing, which is why they made some mistakes, because they had to make some guesses on what would happen in the anime. But the thing is, not all of the movies have narrative contradictions with the anime, which is why the Daizenshuu, which is approved by Akira Toriyama and made off of his worldview on Dragon Ball, in fact, he even states that the Daizenshuu is more credible than he is when it comes to knowledge on Dragon Ball, right? The Daizenshuu verbatim tells us that some of the movies do fit into the anime timeline with no narrative contradictions. The Daizenshuu also tells us that the movies that do have narrative contradictions could be considered alternate timelines, right? So it's not like they are objectively alternate timelines, it's just that the people who made the Daizenshuu and the people who work at Dragon Ball, right, they want it to make sense to you. They're just giving you an alternative way for it to make sense with the canon. So if you want to consider all of the movies as canon to the anime timeline, you can do that. It's just that your continuity makes no sense, narratively speaking. But the main takeaway from this point I'm trying to make is that some of the movies that don't have narrative contradictions, like the Garlic Jr. movie, the first Cooler movie, and the BoJack Unbound movie, still take place within the anime timeline without any problems. Which is why BoJack shows up in Dragon Ball Heroes, because the event of the BoJack movie happened right after the Cell Saga. Also, do you really believe that when the people who were animating Dragon Ball were making the movies, they were just like, yeah, this is an alternate timeline? No, they obviously intended for it to be canon, but they had to make some changes afterwards as a result of the production errors, like I said earlier. Now, when I say narrative contradiction, what exactly do I mean by narrative contradiction? On the 4th of July in the movies, Goku is fighting Broly, but on the 4th of July in the anime, Goku is fighting Beerus. That's a narrative contradiction. They can't have Goku fighting Broly and Goku fighting Beerus at the same time. Essentially, we can't have Goku fighting Broly and Goku not fighting Broly at the same time. This is something we call a P and not P in logic. That's a different type of contradiction to something like, say, Piccolo having a red belt in the movie but having a blue belt in the anime, because we can logically explain this by saying that probably Piccolo changed his belt or something of the sort.
In episode 37, Krillin recognizes Dr. Wheela, which means that the world's strongest movie is also canon to CC Goku's timeline.
It's just like I said before, but I'm just gonna repeat myself. A character that happened to appear in a movie showing up in the main continuity doesn't now necessarily mean that the events of the movie that that character is associated with necessarily happened within the main continuity. It could just be the case that said character shows up off screen in a way that doesn't contradict the story, just like Olibu potentially shows up off screen in the manga in a way that doesn't necessarily mean that the entirety of the Otherworld arc happened within the manga.
And since you and I have both agreed that the movies are separate timelines, not canon to Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball Super.
Yeah, I obviously don't agree with all of the movies not being canon to the anime timeline. I just didn't bring it up in the previous videos because it wasn't the relevant point of contention
in my video whatsoever. I simply used what Toyotaro had to say against you Dragon Ball fans who are trying to say that CC Goku is canon based on what he said. So if the logic being applied to me is that because Toyotaro did not bring up CC Goku in this video means that I cannot say that CC Goku is not canon based on this interview, then you Dragon Ball fans cannot say that CC Goku is canon based on the same interview. Current head of the Dragon Ball manga admits right there in that interview that CC Goku is not canon.
Admits right there in that interview that CC Goku is not canon.
At least admit when you make a mistake and just say that you articulated your words poorly. Do that instead of lying to your audience, because the way you present your argument and your words is the way I'm going to attack them.
You're misinterpreting is the word role. When Toyotaro says it is not his role to decide what is canon, that is him fully giving up the authority of that role to decide what is canon to the fans.
Oh my god, this guy's such an NPC, bro. He did not make any new points whatsoever or refute anything I said. He just repeated word for word exactly what he said in the previous video. Roll the clip.
Interview, he is fully renouncing his authority to determine what is canon and turning that authority over to the fans.
I already responded to this point, so if you want to see it, just go watch the previous video. It's also completely crazy that he tried to argue that the anime and manga are one and the same earlier on in his video, but then he never responded to my point about Goku beating Kefla in the anime and Gohan beating Kefla in the manga, which is just one of the many examples that prove that the anime and manga are not the same and are two separate canon continuities. He legitimately thinks that just because the superhero movie and the manga adaptation of the movie are very, very similar, then that necessarily means that the anime and the manga are the same continuity. I can't even make this up. This guy's a bot, bro. The rest of the video is just him repeating things I've already responded to, as well as him continuously hiding behind a near $2,000 paywall, which nobody is doing. Also, he completely ignored the part where I explained why I don't have as many followers as he does as a result of, like, not being consistent and shit. And then I showed multiple of my mutuals who are way bigger creators than he is, and then they have the same takes as me. It's crazy how you were getting slammed in your own comment section about how horrible your videos are, and then you claimed I don't do research to save my life, but you in this video have proven that you don't do even a single piece of research. Midnight Dre just got absolutely bodied in his own comment section. And it's even crazier that Midnight Dre's fans are dimmer than he is. Like, literally, they don't even understand the context of the conversation or what a straw man is. Everybody needs a chance just to take out the new, yeah. You're the only one who see a chance just to take yourself home. Whoa. Oh. If you like my singing, you can follow me on this account that I made specifically for singing content. I'm gonna tag the account in the captions and in the comment section. I really want Midnight Dre to keep making more and more drip sauce response videos until his entire page is filled with drip sauce response videos. So when he says that I'm obsessed with him, he can look at his page and realize that he just keeps coming back to me.
It is located between the separate dimensions. It has a location. True Outerversal constructs do not have a location in the traditional sense. They exist beyond the boundaries of dimensional or multiversal hierarchy.
This is such a low-tier argument, which is kind of expected because you couldn't even track your own scan, which clearly says that Outerversal realms don't have a location in the traditional sense, implying they do have a location, just not a physical location. Because obviously, an Outerversal realm exists within a cosmology, it would necessarily have to be somewhere in the cosmology. It being somewhere in the cosmology implies it has a location, just not a physical location. It's not rocket science. I don't understand why I have to explain something that even a kindergartner can understand. You can't perfectly represent or describe non-physical or conceptual entities within fiction without using a term or a medium that implies physicality or spatial temporality. Authors can use terms like dimension to simplify and describe a realm, even after contextualizing the realm itself as being non-physical or non-spatial temporal.
Between dimensions that are separate from any other space.
This doesn't really matter, but it says from every other area, not every other space. If you're gonna read a scan, at least read it exactly the way it's written.
But as it clarifies here, being between dimensions means it's still relative to the dimensions that it's between. It just means that it functions differently, but it's still a part of the versus spatial hierarchy.
Brother, I hope you realize that you're not the only one who can gaslight an AI to agree with what you're saying. And you did kind of commit a non sequitur there, because just because it's relative to those dimensions doesn't now necessarily posit the idea that it has to be part of the spatial hierarchy. That doesn't logically follow.
You keep contradicting yourself, because right here it says Goku fell into it while teleporting, meaning that it is an interactional framework. Outerversal constructs are inaccessible. They cannot be perceived, interacted with, or found by lower dimensional beings.
Congratulations on proving that you can't read, because in the scan I quite literally state the instant transmission realm contains the Sugoroku space. That's why Goku fell into it while he was teleporting. So it in this context is referring to the Sugoroku space, which is quite literally what the bottom text says. Goku fell into Sugoroku space, an area between dimensions. The realm that contains the Sugoroku space is the instant transmission realm, which is the realm that Goku goes into whenever he teleports. This instant transmission realm has no concepts of time or space, which is why Goku's movements appear instantaneous whenever he uses instant transmission, because he's literally going into a realm with no concept of time or space. And that's the reason why you can't track Goku's energy whenever he uses instant transmission, because he's not in the realm that you're in. He's entering a different realm entirely that transcends the concept of distance and dimensionality entirely. And like I said, the hyperbolic time chamber and Sugoroku space are contained within this instant transmission realm, right? Which is why whenever you enter the hyperbolic time chamber, they can't sense your energy anymore, and it's described as being sealed off away from the universe. And you say Outerversal constructs are inaccessible. Yeah, that's precisely why Goku required a technique to specifically access this realm. The technique specifically lets you access this realm, Without the technique, he can't.
Her feats are for comedic purposes.
If you watch this portion of the video, he basically yaps about absolutely nothing for a full minute. A character's feats being for comedic purposes doesn't inherently mean that you can negate those feats or dismiss them. Because by definition, characters' effects don't have lasting impact on the story, right? I can make my character destroy a planet and then the next scene the planet is completely fine. But that doesn't change the fact that they have displayed that level of power, right? So if we're doing a versus battle which happens in a neutral space, that character will be able to perform that feat and that feat will have a lasting effect because it's not within the story where his powers don't have a lasting effect.
Thing is called scrap outer. Cause this motherfucker been chasing that acorn since the beginning of Ice Age, and he's over here cracking continents, moving planets around, going after this fucking acorn. So if we're gonna sit here and call Alare outer because of comedic purposes, then we're gonna sit here and call scrap downless.
You can tell that someone is a low tier just by listening to the way they construct their arguments. Honestly, if I wasn't paid for this, I would not even bother with this video whatsoever.
Specifically says the afterlife, where time doesn't really mean much. That is not implicating that there is no time at all.
I feel like I've said this a million times, but please stop using mistranslated scans to downplay Dragon Ball. This is the raw kanji extracted from the scan, and the important part is this statement right here. This statement right here translates to Jikan te mono ga aru kono yo. Jikan means time, while te mono ga aru is a colloquial way in Japanese to express the form that there is such a thing or such a thing exists. So Goku is talking about the living world and saying in this world, time exists. In this world, there is such a thing called time. And he's talking in contrast to Otherworld, which he just came from, implying that Otherworld does not have time. It's quite simple. Now, to make this clear, if you understand Japanese and you read this, you realize that it says nothing about time flowing in a different way or working in a different way from the living world. It says nothing about the flow of time. It specifically talks about the existence of time in one realm in contrast to the other, implying that the other doesn't have time.
If there was no concept of time within Afterlife, then there would be no exact time where the last person who crossed Snake Way was recorded.
I don't know why people still use this garbage argument in Big 25 to try and downplay Dragon Ball, and they really think they're cooking. They'd be like, oh, that's time in the other world, we win, you lose, GG's, Goku is fodder. The scan says that King Enma crossed Snake Way in the last 100 million years, right? Now let me ask you a question. 1 year on Earth and 1 year on Jupiter, are they the same thing? No, they are vastly different. Right? So 100 million years on Earth is obviously going to be vastly different to 100 million years on Jupiter because a year is determined by the length of a planet's axis around the star, right? So the Earth has a shorter axis around the sun, which is why it has a shorter year. Jupiter is going to have a much longer year because it has a much longer and wider axis around the sun. This is important because it proves that time is not a unified thing. You can't measure time in a unified way across every single planet and galaxy in the entire universe, right? So it makes sense that if he's saying 100 million years, he's referring specifically to a time that Goku can understand, a subjective notion of time in context to earthly time, right? He's not talking about Jupiter time. He's just giving Goku a subjective notion of time to understand how long it took for King Enma to cross Snake Way. It does not mean that time actually passed in the other world. He's just giving Goku an idea that if he were to correlate it to Earth time, that would be how long it would take for King Enma to cross Snake Way. That does not prove in any way that time exists in Otherworld. If I count from 1 to 10 in a realm that doesn't have time, that does not mean that that realm now had 10 seconds pass in it, right? That just means I have a subjective notion of time in my mind that I use to simplify my actions or simplify things for the reader because obviously this is a manga and the people reading it have to understand.
And then King Kai even explains and gives an example on how time works differently. 150 days with me will feel like a few thousand years training on Earth.
Again, proving to us that you lack reading comprehension. It says 150 days with me is like training a few thousand years on Earth. This is referring to the efficiency of King Kai's training. Let me give you an example that you can understand. Training with King Kai, right, is like training with Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali when it comes to boxing, right? Obviously, you're going to get far more progress in a shorter time rather than you training all by yourself. It's going to take you much, much longer to train by yourself and match that same skill level.
Mind you, everything within Dragon Ball's Universe 7 is a part of the great universe. Look at the diagram. Everything is still within the continuity. This is a universe, not a multiverse, not a omniverse, a universe. One dimensional framework containing dimensional realms and structures.
Let me know. Girl, you love the way I do it, I'm loving you better. And when you love the way I do it, I'm loving you better. When I'm loving you better.
Right here, it literally says, transcending physical matter or laws of nature. Meaning it's a spiritual transcendence. It transcends the natural laws of physical matter and nature.
He obviously skipped the first part and went straight to the second part because the first part quite literally says relating to metaphysics and being excessively abstract, with metaphysics itself relating to abstract concepts like space, time, identity, being, etc. Also, it can be spiritual and transcending the laws of nature while also being conceptual and abstract and outerversal. Like, there is no contradiction to it being both. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. It can be both.
This scan right here is completely fake.
You can't say that I made a fake scan just because you see me use it in my video, because I could simply be a victim of the circulation of that fake scan in of itself. I've had that scan for a long time and I didn't really bother checking whether or not the raw kanji were actually referring to something being non-physical, because there's other sources within Dragon Ball stating that the other world is non-physical, so I just felt like, yeah, it's probably correct.
Then you sit here and say that it's a non-physical realm, so there's no measurement. Thus, everything you see is for entertainment. So this is for entertainment. That's a measurement, right? You can measure snake way.
Yes, if otherworld is non-physical and measurements necessarily imply spacetime, which inherently is physical, then you cannot argue that anything in otherworld necessitates spatial temporality since they're non-physical to begin with. So it would just be a subjective form of measurement applicable to a non-physical reality that posits no contradiction to its outerversal nature. The artistic representation of a fictional entity does not defeat its scaling, right? So for example, if I wanted to make an outerversal realm and I left it as a white blank void, right? One could still argue that colors like white require photons to exist and photons require space-time to exist. This is why we don't apply this type of logic to fictional entities, because you can't perfectly represent non-physicality or conceptuality within fiction, which is why in power scaling we ignore these things for quantification purposes.
Don't misinterpret the scan, don't make fake scans, and don't use information off of Reddit.
I did not misinterpret, nor did I fake any scans. Also, notice how he completely ignored the scan from the anime where Supreme Kai says, I've teleported us to a planet in the physical plane, which implies that the plane that they're coming from, in contrast, is non-physical. He also completely ignored the scan from the bottom, which is from the RPG. And no, this scan is not from Reddit. You did not show any evidence whatsoever that this is a Reddit scan. This is literally a scan from Daizenshu 4, the world guide of Dragon Ball. It's talking about how the souls in Dragon Ball go to Otherworld because Otherworld is non-physical and souls are non-physical. Like, it's basic common knowledge. I don't even think it has to be explained or written in a guidebook as to why a realm that you go to, an afterlife, has to be spiritual or non-physical. Like, isn't this just basic common knowledge?
At this point, I'm starting to wonder if you even know what transcending dimensionality means. He's above dimensionality, right? But yet, even while in Super Saiyan Blue, he was getting his ass kicked by Zamasu, while Zamasu was weakened. He's above dimensionality, but Vegeta even states that Goku's body has limits. Even while an immortal Zamasu is inhabiting his body, it has limits.
Just for context, the scan is literally from the Chozenshu, and it says that the power of a god of destruction is greater than dimensionality itself, okay? It's not talking about their existence, it's talking about their power. And yes, you can still have limits on that level. Being above dimensionality and power doesn't necessarily mean you have no limits. You can still have tiers and levels of power above that. Being above dimensionality and power only makes you like outerversal, like baseline. And then you can have levels above outerversal.
He's above dimensionality, but yet it took both of them to achieve this feat. And yet, he was still struggling while fighting Beerus.
I don't understand why people act like Goku is a villain who is trying to destroy the universe. Like, I just don't get it. Like, is he trying to blow up the universe? Like, is Goku actually intentionally trying to blow up the universe? Like, why do y'all act like he has to blow up the universe to be scaled to universal? Why don't y'all apply that level of logic to other characters, but only do it because it's Goku? This is just hypocrisy.
He's above dimensionality, but yet Super Saiyan God has a time limit. If you just read, clearly says, the explosion happened due to Goku and Beerus-sama's formidable key clashing, hitting each other again and again with the power capable of destroying the universe itself. Just how will this battle end? Implying that it is not taking a one punch, nor is it taking Goku's single-handed punch.
Hitting each other again and again with the power capable of destroying the universe itself.
The only reason you paused while you were reading is because you realized that your argument was dog shit and you just can't read the scan.
If my power has risen, it means my speed has risen too, which is a hyperbole. Because that does not mean power equals speed at all. It simply just means if your combat ability improves, so does your speed.
What the fuck? That's exactly what I'm saying. If my power increases on an infinite level, then logically speaking, my speed has to increase on an infinite level as well. Because the thing that orchestrates my power is my ki. And if my ki is functioning on an infinite level, and my ki is what orchestrates my speed as well, then logically speaking, my speed will increase on an infinite level as well. So I'll have infinite power and infinite speed. It's not rocket science.
If speed were truly irrelevant, he would never have mentioned his speed being risen, because irrelevant speed means you do not have to abide by movement at all. You do not need reaction time, you do not need movement, you do not need senses, you do not need anything.
No, irrelevant speed just means that your speed functions on a level beyond dimensionality itself. It doesn't mean that you can't have a reaction speed or you don't need your senses or movement, because those are not things that are inherently tied to space-time itself.
The gods look down upon the entire world, which is the living world. Like, if you look at your own cosmology, Earth is below the cosmos, which is also considered the afterlife, and as it states, it is a heavenly country where humans cannot perceive, and the gods look down upon the land. Even if you looked at your own data books and read it thoroughly, it's literally split in half, but is inside a single sphere. Again, top half, afterlife, bottom half, living world. They look down upon them where the humans cannot perceive.
I find it honestly embarrassing that a grown-ass man in the Big 25 is making this type of stupid arguments, but I mean, what do I expect? It's a Dragon Ball downplayer. They're always trash at logic and debating and everything that has to do with common sense. At what point in your life did you realize that directions like up, down, left, or right are not actually real and don't actually exist? They're just subjective notions that we use to simplify reality for ourselves. For example, if I face forward, and my friend faces backwards, right? His backwards is my forward, and my forward is his backwards. But if we switch, the directions switch completely, right? So they're not fixed. They're not set in stone. The same thing for up and down. Someone on the other side of the planet, his up is your down and vice versa. So it's not fixed. It's not something set in stone. This is why when you go to outer space, there is no up or down. There is no notion of up or down because there is no gravity. It's the gravity that we perceive on Earth that gives us the illusion that there's up or down. This is why if we stand upside down, you start feeling dizzy in a short while because the gravity is pulling all the fluids in your body downwards in its direction, in the direction of the Earth, right? So then you have the illusion that, oh, this is the wrong direction. I have to stand right side up, right? But realistically, there is no objective notion of up or down. It's just the gravity that's giving you that illusion. This is exactly why in context to spatial axioms, you can't have one realm being on top of another. Like, how do you even have one infinite realm being placed on top of another infinite realm? How does that make any sense to you whatsoever? How do you place infinity on top of infinity? This is exactly why Toriyama states in this scan that he drew the diagram just for the staff members to be able to understand how the cosmology works, and the readers as well.